So my name is Francesca and I work on player experience. In particular, I study when player experience difficulty, as it can be in the case of experience emotion or having emotional inaccessibility in a game. Mm-hmm. So my research kind of focus on understanding why some experience that have intense emotional content might be pleasurable for some people, while for other is overwhelming. I think it's important because all players will have different sensibility and will experience difficulty in different areas. So I think it's important as it can improve the experience for different kind of people. Literally everybody from designer to players. If the game is not well designed, it creates impossibility for some player to play, and for players at the same time you want to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed when you try to do something that should be enjoyable for you. Yes, I work with Able Gamers. They are a charity that work on accessibility for players. And so we work on try to understand how occupational therapists are using games in their daily practice. It's still a work in progress, but is going to help to try to understand better how games are used in this field. Well, I think it's very exciting to be part of one of the top research group on games in the world, and I think it really influenced the quality of my research and also be impacted by so many other researchers that do research on games different from me. And also we have a lot of contact with not just Yorkshire games company, but in the entire UK, so we have very high collaboration. I think the most important or interesting part of my research has been I never realized how the things I'm studying now is actually affecting me. I think I started to research and then I realized, I actually can improve my experience as a player. And so that is exciting for me because I like to play games.
Okay. Hello, I'm Joshua Kritz. I am a PhD researcher in board games and artificial intelligence at Queen Mary University of London. I am investigating synergy in card games. I'm trying to quantify it through simulation. I think this is important because we're going to be able to talk more objectively about synergy and be able to correctly identify it in games. Synergy is for example, a combo in Magic the Gathering where you mix cards to do something very powerful, or even the chain of actions we find in White Castle. My motivation for this is that there is a gap in the literature. There is very little research in synergy specific, even though it is a very common talked about topic in the discussion of games and for designers and everything else. So I intend to cover that, and I think it's very important because we will be able to create better game design tools. We will be able to analyze games in a more objective way if we know what synergy is about. There's also the fact that synergy is frequently at fault for breaking games. It's very hard to balance synergy because there is a big variation of interactions there is in a game, and it's pretty hard for designers to cover everything. I still haven't managed to put my research in practice in industry level. We are working with an indie game designer that's creating a game, and we're trying to analyze and help him on the design process. However, I still haven't managed to put in synergy into that because it doesn't fit the game that well and the type of analysis we're doing. So I'll be very interested in finding a company that's willing to take me in and talk about synergy in their game. Probably some company that has a game that is very reliant on synergy, for example, a digital card game, and that will either allow me to have the data to look into synergy or even apply synergy in their design process and validate if my ideas actually make sense. iGGi was an amazing advent that happened in my life because it is a PhD group where you have a multitude of researchers engaged in games and interested in games, and in very different areas. And I'm very curious about game research, not only in my area, but other types. So being able to talk to them and interact with them in a way that I can learn about every type of research in games is amazing. And for someone that came from an environment where we didn't have much support, having a big group of people that are there to support you and help you, it's just blissful. Well, my PhD journey was a very rocky one. I started a PhD in another topic that didn't work really well, and I felt very lucky to actually be able to go back into games research and start a PhD in that. And that has been a very good experience for me, even though all the hardships, being able to do something I love, something I care, makes the journey very worthy. It makes very rewarding, and I feel great doing it right now. Well, thanks for listening. I see you at Develop, and bye.
My name is Carl, and I'm an iGGi PhD researcher at Queen Mary University looking into social virtual reality. My research looks into the ways that people connect and converse in social virtual reality. I study the ways in which the environment changes the behaviours of the users and how the users can shape and meld the environment to suit them. Connection is a core component in our lives. During the pandemic, when a lot of us were locked down, there were flocks and flocks of people who went to social VR. The main stakeholders in my research are the platforms themselves. To develop systems to enhance user experience, the content creators who are creating more engaging and facilitating better interaction in worlds, and finally the players themselves to make sure they've got a more engaging and a more thriving environment to converse in. I'm mainly looking at the games industry, looking for virtual reality studios, be it social, cinematic experiences, or games that require research into user experience. iGGi has allowed me to connect with so many people that would have seemed inaccessible had I not had the support from supervisors or the iGGi team. Access to incredible events such as Develop Brighton allow me to share knowledge and to get better perspectives or different perspectives on research topics. The most interesting thing that's happened to me throughout my PhD journey is the community that I've built to over 2,600 members, where we share music, we create visuals, we use stage lighting, all in social virtual reality in order to create an engaging show every single week. It has allowed me to observe a much wider demographic of users in social virtual reality and allowed me to extend my knowledge in skills and pick up new skills such as 3D modelling or DMX lighting or further event technologies. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at Develop Brighton, I guess.
My name is Lauren Winter, and my research is about human to AI interactions in video games. So my research is about looking at how people interact with AI in video games. It's based around a concept called social presence, which looks at the initial, like how you become aware of the person in the game, but more like how you're aware of them as a intelligent being that you can communicate with. So I want to then see if that can be applied to AI. So AI is increasingly being integrated into our lives in weird and wonderful ways where you wouldn't expect it. I want to see basically if there's anything that we should be aware of in these interactions, if there's anything we should be taking into consideration, but ultimately how we can make these interactions like as nice and as pleasant and as enjoyable to the people as possible. I think there's like two sides to it. I think the user, the player benefits because they get a better experience. But I think that there's potential implications for my research in stuff like chatbots and virtual assistants. So I think the industry could benefit in terms of learning about how to make those a better experience for users. So I did a knowledge exchange with Parent Zone. The knowledge exchange was to create an app where parents could access information about the video games that their children are playing. So we were like right at the very beginning of this. So we did like the market research. We looked at what parents are concerned about in video games and that sort of stuff, so that we could then put that information into the video game. So parents are like accessing what they need. The outcome for Parent Zone was the beginnings of an app, which they are now continuing to develop. The outcomes for me was a paper which I took to Kai in Japan recently about parental concerns in video games. I think the best thing about iGGi really is the people. I think it's so inspiring, so motivating to like turn up to the office and talk about your research and just get like different ideas from people who are in almost completely different fields. Like we all share video games, but we all have different specializations, so we can talk about things and get different perspectives on it. Mm-hmm. The most inspiring aspect of my journey has definitely been the opportunities to travel. So I've been fortunate enough to publish a couple of papers. So I've been to Canada and Japan, and being able to just like experience different cultures and meet academics from around the world has just like really, made a huge difference for me.
My name is Nicole, and I'm researching essentially the combination of neuroscience and video games while researching ADHD at the same time. Yes, so I'm investigating attention through neuroimaging and video games. My research is important because attention is something that is not fully understood in the literature right now. And also the way we shift between different states of attention, so whether it's engaged or bored, it actually underlies a lot of what we do in our everyday life, and people don't understand why we even shift between these attention states. So that's something I'm going to be analysing in my research, as well as ADHD, which is something that involves differences in attention. So there's been a lot of literature out there, well actually not a lot, which is why my research is here, because people have found that actually video games could be an effective form of therapy for people with ADHD, because it kind of engages people, it's accessible, and also video games as research tools present kind of complex cognitive tasks that also can investigate lots of different types of brain functions rather than just one, for example, or one or two that a typical psychological cognitive task can give to investigate. So my research, first of all, uses video games for research, but also presents the idea that video games could be an effective form of therapy for ADHD in improving attention, hopefully helping people with their everyday life later on. I did my knowledge exchange with a TV studio called Bold Print Studios. We essentially did this documentary called Swiped. It's called Swiped, the school that banned smartphones, where people had, these students essentially had no social media and no smartphone for 23 days. And I measured their brain activity using iGGi before and after that period, and hope to see differences. So being a part of iGGi has made quite a big impact on my research, because essentially it's a whole different bunch of people who are all investigating very different things, some things I've never heard of before being in this program. So it's very interdisciplinary in that way, and therefore like when we all kind of get together and do these events like workshops or the iGGi Game Jam, where we all make a video game together for a week, these kind of events, they bring us together, but also they present a lot of opportunities for collaboration as well, which, I mean, I'm from a neuroscience background, I'm probably the only one in the whole iGGi cohort investigating what I am investigating, so it's quite amazing to be able to bring that together with someone who's investigating something totally different. Yes, the most inspiring part of my PhD so far has been probably soapbox science, which is when I essentially went into the town square of York and stood on a soapbox and talked about my research with the public, and that was just funny as a concept, but also really fun as well to hear people's immediate response to my research and like kind of talking to them. Some people even had issues with it, so which is fine, because it's fun to kind of debate about these things. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Oliver Withington, and I am a games and AI researcher based here in London with the iGGi CDT. So my research has focused on novel techniques for evaluating systems that generate game content. I don't think it's news to anyone that we live in a time that is increasingly dominated by systems that generate content, that write text for us, that produce images for us. But evaluating these systems is often incredibly challenging, especially when they're making content for games, which is a very subjective artistic space, where there's numerous different constraints you have to satisfy. But robust evaluation is really important, both for us as researchers, so that we know what the state of the art is and can compare it to alternatives, but also for game designers to tune their systems correctly to produce the optimal types of content for them. And that's hopefully where I come in, where I've, the past few years, focused on very designer-focused methods for evaluating content generators, specifically in terms of what output they're likely to produce for you, in terms that you can then make statements about, I'm happy with that output range, or I'm unhappy with that, and here's how I'm going to tweak it. I did the knowledge exchange with a small Spanish game developer called iGGi, and I was working with them on their in-development title called 1 Billion Spells, which is a really cool game, and its kind of unique selling point is this spell-making system, this kind of drag-and-drop node-based system that players can interact with to create their own spells. I think it's a really cool hook for a game, but it's quite a hard space to test because there's dozens and dozens of different node types which can be freely combined to make fairly uncountable large numbers of spells. So doing traditional QA or quality assurance on that space in terms of the right amount of balance between the nodes, in terms of the right amount of diversity of playstyles available, is quite tricky. And that's where I came in, so I worked with them to produce a spell simulator system and visualization tool for exploring this space. This was incredibly useful for me to kind of road test some of my ideas and the ideas of my colleagues on an in-development commercial title and get more of an idea of where our techniques can fit in a kind of more traditional development cycle. And I think it was very useful for them, both to get sort of concrete insights into which bits of their system are poorly balanced or overpowered at a given point in time, but also how more generically to implement this kind of visualization technique. I think we were both pleasantly surprised by how quickly this approach was to spin up. Like in a matter of weeks, we had interesting data being produced, even though it was only me working solo on this very small game project. So yeah, very cool part of the PhD. The people, it's the most important thing to me. Through iGGi, having access to the iGGi community, by which I mean the supervisors and the students, you couldn't ask to meet a more diverse, dynamic and driven group of people. So the atmosphere is just absolutely infectious, and the concrete ideas that are produced from idle conversations over coffee through to more conventional research collaborations have been invaluable for my PhD research, often coming from quite surprising areas. I think one of the real strengths of iGGi is have the immense diversity of perspectives and research directions you've got, because I think often it's at the intersection between what we think of as being discrete fields that you get some of the most exciting research being produced. I feel incredibly grateful to have access to that. So yeah, the most inspiring part of the journey has to be the sort of distance travelled from where I started to where I am now. 5 years ago when I started on this journey, I barely even knew what a PhD was. In fact, in my iGGi interview, I flubbed a couple of questions about very basic procedure and ideas about what a PhD even is. So the distance travelled between then to now, having got to meet and work with so many of my academic heroes, having got to speak on stages that I'd never thought I'd have access to, especially in the last few months getting to stand on stage at GDC, where I've been watching GDC talks for the past 20 years, really looking up to these people as being thought leaders and industry titans. So getting to share that stage, even though it was absolutely terrifying, was magical. And I think when you're in the PhD grind, it can be hard to appreciate how much you are growing and learning. It's only when asked a question like this that you get a chance to sort of reflect back and see the immense distance travelled in, not a short amount of time, but can feel like a short amount of time. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to me, and if you are going to be a develop in 2025, please find me on the convention floor if you want to talk anything proc gen and games or anything besides two. Please seek me out. I'd love to chat to you.
Hello, my name is Ross Fifield and I'm a PhD researcher investigating why we play games with others. I'd like to understand what features of play enable people to play video games with others and learn more about the reasons why play with others does or does not commence. With this understanding, I'd like to generate work which helps publishers and developers to increase opportunities for people to play games with others and positively affect the life cycle of communities of play and the games which those communities enjoy. Although the games industry is booming and this success shows no sign of slowing down, it's also extremely volatile. With a greater understanding of the social aspects of play, I hope my work can reduce risks surrounding projects, extend their life cycle, and help publishers provide the kind of games players want to play with others. I believe that both publishers and consumers alike will benefit from my research. I also hope that increasing sociability within and around games may have tangential benefits, such as well-being and personal growth. I'm actively looking for a knowledge exchange and see the best opportunity to generate meaningful data from a large platform provider which hosts a wide and diverse variety of games. Such study could generate data sets which may be quite enlightening when we examine the effectiveness of features and factors such as wish lists, purchases and medium to long-term customer retention in the context of social play. iGGi has been instrumental in enabling me to pursue my line of inquiry. We've got a very collegiate atmosphere across multiple institutions, and over several years, iGGi academics and alumni have forged some significant success both within the academic sector, but crucially within the wider games industry. I've had the opportunity to engage with many prominent people and organisations within the game development sector, and the warm feedback and support I've had from colleagues has been transformative in making me a better researcher. As a user-centred designer, I care as much about the players which don't engage as those who do. My research has helped reinforce my opinion that play can be truly impactful in bringing people together, which I believe is a core function of games generally. I've particularly enjoyed learning about the work of others who work in this space, and their contributions help shape and inform my own approach to pursuing my PhD.
Hello, I'm Tamsin. I'm a second-year iGGi researcher at University of York, and my research focuses on limited time events in digital games and how they affect engagement, re-engagement and disengagement. So limited time events are those events like seasonal updates, battle passes, special challenges in digital games that are there to kind of boost engagement and bring people back. But despite the kind of popularity, there's not much research into actually what do they cover, what are they. So that's where I ultimately want to make a taxonomy of limited time events based on over 1,000 top charting games. Then also look at actual player experience in real time, and then move over to do more data driven to see which parts of the events, like different features, actually then support long-term engagement. And then ultimately I want to help design games events which are ethical and player friendly. I'm hoping to kind of work with studios or game analytics to look at their live data to be able to help them kind of pinpoint how people are interacting with the games, which parts or features are kind of most effective, and I'm hoping to maybe do it with game industry studios who do like MMOs, multiplayer, but anything like that, I'm kind of open to the opportunity. Being part of iGGi has made a huge impact because it's such a great community. And then it has all like the conferences and the game jams, and to be able to work with not only the community here at York, but also in London. And then also, it's not just researchers, it's with the industry as well. And it's allowed me to kind of meet people with lots of different areas like AI, HCI, which have really like impacted the different ways I think, because it gives me new perspectives of kind of how events affect different things. I think the most inspiring aspect so far has been my interviews with players. Because being able to get their kind of more individual emotional perspective on kind of limited time events made me realise that they're not just kind of a game feature that's just put out there. It's actually something that affects players sometimes on deeper levels. And being able to understand these different perspectives, it's really inspiring how sometimes someone will say, oh, this actually, it brought me back to my childhood and it gave me really good feelings. And to be able to help understand that and maybe make more of those moments, that's really inspiring for me.
Hi, my name's Toby and I'm studying Game Master AI for tabletop games at Queen Mary University of London. So my research entails teaching artificial intelligence agents how to play tabletop games, specifically TTRPGs, role-playing games such as Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder. Those games tend to be a bit more asymmetric in play, in that one player will have completely different rules and abilities and even win conditions compared to a team of everyone else. So the Game Master or Dungeon Master role is the most important role in tabletop role-playing games. They're both the referee and narrator for running the game. It requires a lot of effort in order to do it. You have to be able to tell players, yes, your action is legal, or well, you can certainly try and do that. At the same time, players want to do this action, say, okay, this is what you want to do, here's how it interacts with the world. And a lot of people are really into TTRPGs, particularly during the pandemic. A lot of people watching things like Critical Role, Dimension 20, and wanting to get into that sort of thing, and then they're inexperienced and don't know how to do it, so they get a bit disappointed that their end result isn't what they saw online. So I'm wanting to do something that can give people a bit of a boost, a bit of a helping guide, just say, hey, look, you're trying to do something here, here's some ideas that could get you started, just sort of a blackboard foundation to work with. So for any industry placements, I would really like to collaborate within the video game industry itself, more so specifically within the game design aspects and how players interact with the narrative directly. Part of the beauty of TTRPGs is how players' actions have direct consequences on the narrative flow and the trajectory of the story. So having some company which works quite heavily with narrative games and the players' decisions, I think would be really beneficial for my research. There's a lot of research more so into enemy-controlled units in video games, more so than board games, so I think that's why I would want to look more in the video game area. Just keep it there. Honestly, I'd say the biggest part of iGGi for me is just the community. I can remember the very first day of iGGiCon when I joined and just feeling completely bewildered. I had no idea what was going on. I was completely uncertain of my future and a little bit uncertain as to what was going to go if I would even belong there. But I don't think I've ever set foot in a place and just felt I'm at home more than these guys. It's like this one big found family of nerds. Just being able just to pester people so much and just say, hey, I need help with this, and then they'll come back and say, yeah, sure, help yourself out, and being really good, or just hanging out with everyone. I think just because there's so many people on the same path, but they've got their own different destinations, it's really heartwarming and helpful. I think just being able to talk directly to so many people in the industry and who have also done further research and such, and just getting their insight, picking their brains for a bit. Being able to go to so many different conferences and just meeting so many new people, they've all got their own unique stories to tell, so just having something, different viewpoints and such, just to see, okay, here's something you're doing, have you tried doing this? Or actually, that's very similar to my own research, why don't we try this direction? I recently had my first major conference over in America, and it was just completely eye-opening just seeing how many people were there that were doing very similar things to me, but just had so much to say that I could help improve my own research, and how many people were also really interested in my research and where it was going. So just knowing there's so many people who have got your back, it's just really helpful. So yeah, thanks for having me, and I'll see everyone else at Develop Brighton.